This market review is of Bigfoot, the monster truck, and it's a 125th scale model by AMT. There's a picture of the finished model. It's going to be a big car, and some more pictures of the finished model there. And another picture, more pictures of the finished model. So let's have a look. Here's underneath is the parts listing. Looks like a lot of parts and decals. So let's have a look inside. I'm going to have a lot of parts here. First of all, we just have to look here. We have 2 axles, these monster tires, absolutely monster tires. Those are the classic Bigfoot tires. Nice, soft, flexible. Those are awesome. Let's have a look at our body here. There's that classic body right there. It is going to be a big model. That's the Bigfoot. And do have some mold lines here, but otherwise fairly well molded. Now we have a lot of sprues here, which means a lot of detail and a lot of parts. So over here we have our radiator parts, we have our seat. It's really not great molding, little flashing here. Everything has pretty much got mold lines. Here's a stray parts. We have our suspension parts, also not very good molding. We have our exhausts. And mufflers over the exhaust parts here, the manifolds. Looks like either a fire extinguisher or maybe like a NOS. Here we have our transmission. We've got some engine block parts. Here's our belts. This looks like parts for our suspension and our axles. So we have part of the frame that goes underneath, all with mold lines everywhere. And lots of suspension parts here. More parts for the frame. And here's our steering wheel. Maybe our drive shafts here. And here are our suspension parts linked to our axles and differentials, and our bumper here. And then here's the inside of the frame, and here's the other side that builds up the roll cage. That's fairly well molded. Here's the other side. Here we have our monster wheels. Look there, that's some nice detail in there too. And here's our glass. We've got windshields and side windows. And then lastly our chrome parts here. We have some engine parts, some suspension parts. Okay, let's have a look. We've got some instructions here, and looks looks like we've got instructions in different languages. So I'm going to do the English one. French and Spanish can go in there. So we start off with the engine block and transmission. We put our exhaust parts on there, the supercharger with the air intake, and we put our mounting blocks on there. And over here we have remaining engine parts going on, supercharger, belts, exhaust manifolds, all going on. Next we put our wheels together. There's monster wheels. And you're supposed to paint it black in there. It's going to be interesting. And then the axles. Next we put our seat together. And our steering. That's then all mounted on the inside of that cockpit. So we start to build our chassis. So we've got our battery. Looks like a large battery. Everything's just large in this. Then we put together the roll cage, and the driver cockpit is mounted to the cage, and remaining parts for that cage. Next we put together our radiator, and then the axles. Then the engine is mounted with the exhausts, and the axles are mounted with the drive shafts, and remaining parts including suspension parts, shocks, and so on. Next the body is mounted, and wheels are put on. So, all in all, it's a fairly detailed model. Looks like here we have some decal guide. There's French and Spanish. So let's look at the English one. There's the details about the car. So here's actually some additional details about building the cab and the body. And then the decals going on. And how to put the decals on. So all in all, that looks like a very detailed model. Molding quality is average, but many of those problems can be sanded down. Let's have a look at our decals here. Those are some very nice decals. Not really a fan of those front ones. I'd rather paint those on. But all in all, that'll be a great model.